Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Hassan Talks podcast. This episode again comes as part of the Sudanese creators series. We're still talking with Sudanese creators who are doing amazing work out there, either in Sudan or outside Sudan. And for this episode, I'm having the amazing Abdelwahab Siraj. Not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but I'll give him the chance to introduce himself. Abdelwahab is a coach, is a self coach, is somebody who motivates others to perform better, to achieve their goals, and he's taken the best way to make this happen is by taking an example of himself. So we all see how he's getting out there and achieving his own goals, and he's motivating us to do that. So that's the best example out there. He's the co-founder. He's the founder and the CEO of I Will Coaching, and he's based in the US. So he's accepted my invitation to be part of the podcast. So I'll give him now the chance to introduce himself. So hello, Abdulwahab.
Bibi, man, thank you so much for the invite, and it's definitely a pleasure to hang out with you, this evening.
Yeah.
So as far as the name, by the way, it's definitely a common pronunciation. So it's Abdelwahab Sarraj, but for whatever reason, I think a lot of people call it Siraj for
Yes,
that
it's
is
Sudanese because Siraj is very Sudanese name.
Right. Yeah, but we are, Abdelwahab Sarraj. Actually, my family, my dad's family are from Umdurman, Beit al-Mal. So, and grew up in born in Sudan, and then moved to the UAE, where I lived there for roughly about 13 years. And after that, we went back to Sudan for about a year, and we came here to the US roughly about 22 years ago.
Wow. Where in the
It's
US
been forever.
exactly? Where are you based in
we
the
we
US?
are in Virginia. Grew up in Virginia, Fairfax County, which is roughly about 20 minutes away from Washington DC. And we like Virginia, like Northern Virginia. That's what they call it.
Okay, wow, that's great. That's good. I have never been to the US, so I don't know exactly the geographical things, but maybe somebody is listening to this or like knows you, so he can exactly locate where you are. That's nice.
Definitely.
And what about your work in I Will Coaching and how you guys started? Do you start by yourself? Is it like from scratch? I'm so intrigued.
So yes, I mean, well, I'll definitely give you that, the history. And I think, it's maybe it will help a little bit, individuals in the younger generation just to see my story. And I think that hopefully will help, just paint some picture as far as, every dream. And, when we start to set up certain things and goals and expectations, because I know we're going to be, diving into goals and expectations later on during this podcast. As every, Sudanese young boy after graduation, of course, we have the pressure by our parents to either pursue medical, become a doctor, or, pursue engineering. In a sense, I mean, that was the two options that I think I had in the table. Either you be a doctor, or you be an engineer.
Yeah, either doctor, engineer, or a failure, basically.
So that was really that was that. And so when I started going to college, I wanted to become a doctor. So I studied pre-med, and after I think my fourth quarter, my third year in college, I do have an uncle who works for the World Bank. So subhanAllah, he came in to visit, and he studied economics. So, he asked me a simple question as far as, why do I want to study medicine? And my first answer, which I think it was a very organic just answer, was because I wanted to make money. So his response right away was like, well, if that was your intention is to make money, you are in the wrong field. Because typically doctors are more genuine about helping and impacting and doing all these different things.
Field, yeah.
100%. So he was like, but if your thought process is all about making the money, why don't you just go back to, why don't you change your major to economics? We'll get you a job at the World Bank, and you can make a lot more money doing it that way. So to be honest with you, I got so excited about the idea, and I actually went into my guidance counselor like the next day, and I said, listen, I'm changing my major. I don't want to do no medical stuff anymore. I'm done. I just want to do economics.
Wow.
So subhanAllah, she asked me to slow down, and she said, listen, I mean, I get you're excited about this, but you are 4 years into college. You're ready to graduate in like 2 semesters. So changing your major is considered suicide. This is just too crazy. But she advises is, if you are excited about the whole economics, why don't you just do a minor in economics? And so I thought that was, she said, well, you might actually end up to stay maybe an additional semester, which was I was okay with. So, so I added economics into my portfolio, and I started to do some classes. And part of that, the requirement of my economics minor is to take a psychology class. So, and somehow that for me, that was the beginning of just a new passion. So I took psychology, and I fell in love with psychology, because with psychology is a lot of, it's not a dry topic. There's a lot of liveliness into it. So I went back to her, I think after a semester, and I said, well, I want to do psychology. I want to do another minor in psychology. And by the way, I was doing all of this without telling my parents, because in my parents' minds, this kid is going to become a doctor, and that's about it. I mean,
yeah, you cannot take away that
from
them, actually.
It's the end of discussion.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. So I did the minor in economics. I ended up staying an additional year. And after graduation, here in the US, once you graduate, you take an exam called the MCAT, which to get into medical schools. And I did it. And actually, I scored a 39.5 out of 42. So alhamdulillah, was very, very high. Ended up, applying for medical schools. I got accepted into UVA medical school. But again, like from a timeline perspective, that will take roughly about probably 6 to 7 months until that semester start. So I went into my parents, and I did let them know that, hey, I got into the school that I wanted, which is exciting. So I was like, well, instead of just sitting down and just waiting, why can't I pick a job, as, just get a job while I'm waiting? And they said, that's great. So by the way, I reached out to my uncle, who actually promised me that interesting job. And the first thing that came out of his mind was like, well, I don't even recall having a conversation with you.
God.
It's the word.
Changing your
it's
life,
a word,
and he does not recall the conversation.
Right away. Nope. He was like, it's the World Bank. It's, there's no wasata that needs, I cannot just get you in. It's on you. You can apply if you want to. So I was very devastated at the time. But at some point, I thought he was the right. I was like, screw this guy, screw economics. I didn't want to do anything. And ended up getting a job as a therapist using my minor in psychology. Did that for about a couple. And then, of course, the semester started. And then I went into my parents, and I told them that, listen, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do medical anymore. And so, of course, they panicked. They freaked out about, what do you mean you're not doing medical? I said to them, I already spoke with my guidance counselor, and what thing they mentioned is I do have about up to 2 years to join the school. They will accept my, my admission within 2 years if I want to go back. So I said to them, I started doing the psychology things, and I fell in love with the concept of it, because its impact and its helping is taking individuals and working on the mental health aspect of things and continue to give back. So after a very interesting, tough conversation with the parents, they were okay with it. And I started working as a therapist, roughly did that for about a couple of years. And of course, the whole idea of going back into medicine, medical school was just out the window, because I wasn't excited anymore about it. And after 2 years, I asked myself a question about, I'm working for someone else. I'm doing this therapy thing for someone else. Why can't I just open up my own thing? And somehow I had a good friend of mine at the time, and we decided to open up our own agency where we will do therapy, but with a twist. So it's not people coming to our office. It's actually the opposite, when we're going into people's homes and provide that therapy in their home environment. So it started as an idea at Burger King, and a piece of napkin. We wrote the business plan as far as how we want to approach it. Alhamdulillah, 6 months later, we made that into a reality. We started our own agency. I had a co-partner in it, where I will, during the day I'm an admin, during the night I'm seeing clients, and then during the day he was seeing clients, and then at night he was an admin. So that's how we started. Fast forward 7 years in the business. Alhamdulillah, we expanded the business into 7 different locations, 150 staff working for us. And then it was an amazing, process itself. Through it, there's a lot of ups and a lot of downs, a lot of learning, a lot of processing, a lot of, I think self-discovery. So 3 years ago, I think I was sitting down with myself, and the question came about purpose. Like, what is my purpose? Like, when I'm 6 feet under, like, how do I want people to remember me? And then I want to be 100% honest with you. I couldn't answer that question. I was at a
It's
level
it's a
where
very tough
I'm,
question for anybody, actually.
100%, 100%. And at that level, I was, at a position where I'm running a company. I had the status. Financial wasn't an issue at all. Expansion was just great. Growth. I didn't even have to do anything anymore. We just sitting down, go to the office just for the sake of going to the office, signing papers, and that was that. And I had an issue that, to be honest with you, I had a very hard time. Like, I think it was like 3 years ago. Just like it did not sit well with me. So subhanAllah, I went to Hajj, and just with that one thing in mind is that self-discovery, trying to understand purpose in life and what I want to do, and how I want to be remembered. Went to Hajj, alhamdulillah, came back out of it with just a lot of istikharas and a lot of just, God, please direct me into a path like where I'm able to make an impact, where I'm enjoying the process, and where it's at some point it's memorable. There's an impact that is being left behind. So June 8th, Friday, 2018. No, I think it's 2017. In the office on a Friday, 10 o'clock. Send an email to my partner, and then our CFO and our HR. And I said, hey, I would like to have a meeting. And we had a meeting set up for 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, I got on there and I told them that I'm leaving. So the first reaction that was like, leaving? Are you like going home early? I'm like, nope, I'm done with this. This is it. I'm not doing it anymore. And I just wanted to take a step back to figure out what I wanted to do. So when he asked me that question, as far as how did IWL coaching started, it definitely started with, I believe, an idea as far as what I wanted to do. I think the way I took it, the way I approached it is I just burned the boat. I said, screw it. I'll start from scratch. I'll figure it out, but I'm done with this particular life. I don't advise that for a lot of my clients right now. I tell you guys, hey, let's be strategic as far as how you make that move, especially in these kind of times. But that's how I did it. I remember coming home and telling my wife that I just quit my job. And the first reaction from her was, hold on a second, I'm going to Miami this weekend. What are you talking about? And I said, you know what, go for it. Inshallah, we'll be okay. We'll be fine. But for me, it was just a restart. Because it's just a clean, slate, a re-beginning, a restarting something from scratch. And subhanAllah, I took that Friday just to relax. Saturday, that's when we started. Piece of paper, same exact thing, went back into basics. A piece of napkin, and we just start to draw, just
was
back
it
into
Burger
the drawing
King
line.
again, or was somewhere else this
time?
time?
Man, it was in my living room at that time. We're just chilling at the living room.
Wow, that's
and
incredible.
subhanAllah, we just put that. We put the blueprint as far as what we want to do, the impact, like how we wanted to do it, our target population, even the name, like the name was IWL LLC. That's how I want it. And slowly the IWL LLC went in from IWL to IWL coaching, and from IWL coaching, and by just, mind you, I have no background in any technical aspect of anything. So going in there, learning how to build a website, asking the proper question, weighing heavily on our proximity and the people that surround us. And alhamdulillah, and it was all with just the people around us, a lot of heart and a lot of just drive. We made that into a reality, got our first client, and now 3 years into business, alhamdulillah.
Wow, that's an incredible story. But what really got my attention is when I asked you the question and you went back to your time in the university, and I think that has some part of the story as well. Is anything is always connected to something happened in the past. It's not as recent as it could be. If you ask me how do you start a podcast, I will tell you, well, on that day, I decided just to start a podcast. But actually, it's for sure it's connected to something 100%. That happened 10 years ago, or somebody told me something 5 years ago. But also, it is something also very interesting, that the advice that your uncle gave you, or the question that he asked you, and then later he completely forgot about it. The conversation did not happen. Actually, this happens to so many people. Question what we do, even if we are confident about it, and they put us down for so many people do that. Why are you doing this? You're wasting your time here. And they completely affect you. Then they just go on with their lives and they forget that they affected somebody else. So if you're not really caring about your own life, so you don't have to get impacted by whatever is happening. So you take everything in your advantage like you did. I think that's brilliant.
100%, brother. And then I just want to be very clear. I was very angry. I was very upset. I was I started to play the blame game, and I think that's you just blaming others as far as like not taking responsibility. How can I believe how he said this to me? I can't believe
Yeah,
this, and I'm starting to complain to my parents about how dare he. Now all of a sudden my parents wants to connect with him and call him out. And I'm like, whoa, and then so how I just came into that realization and hold on a second, like at this point, it's like no one is going to be out there to save you or to help you. It's like if
yeah,
you don't learn it, if you don't take
yeah,
full responsibility for your life, and to be honest with you, when we're going to talk about it later, as far as like some of the methods and some of the things that we do, it's all about that accountability. It's all about self-love. It's all about just taking full charge of your own
absolutely,
life, because that way
absolutely.
you will never get disappointed, because it's the efforts that you put in. If you don't put the efforts, you can't get the reward. And if you put in the efforts, you are able to get that reward. So it all goes back into us. And I think the sooner we realize it's us who need to put in the work and stop blaming others for
Yeah.
whatever that is that we went through in life, the smoother life and the clearer life will become for us, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's actually very true. So that's exactly what I meant. Is like people could tell you stuff, you should learn from it or like take it in your advantage instead of blaming people, which is the easiest thing that anybody can do, and being stuck in that phase or that
Right.
circle forever. But what you've done is amazing. So now I want to proceed to something before we get into coaching itself. What are the services that you guys provide in this amazing platform?
Perfect. So at this point, we broke the business itself into three different entities. So the first one is the results coaching. What is that? What does that mean? Like when people ask, like, what is results coaching? I think it's every one of us. I think it's all about results. It's we want to see things. We want to achieve certain things. So when we start to think about results, I mean, each and every individuals have a different upbringing, different life, different outlook of how we look at life and how we look at goals and how we look at things. So that first program is definitely helping individuals achieve just life in general. Like, what direction do we want to go? Because we see a lot of people that are very like confused, or they started something but they don't know where to go, and they just need that additional guidance into where to go, what direction you want to go. So that results coaching is helping individual identifying where they at in life and what direction they want to go, and give them that platform as far as that step-by-step manual to help them achieve those certain goals. The second entity is the relationship coaching, and which is something it's one of our, I think, most popular programs. And we also recognize that relationship, not just relationship with yourself, it's relationship with significant others, relationship with parents, siblings, neighbors, work. I mean, relationship, it's a very broad, like entity. So when we take relationship, we do advice in the entire areas. I mean, first, I mean, we tend to help identify individuals to identify who they are as individuals, find out, that come to peace with their own relationship with their own self, and then identify and cherish and embrace other relationship out there. And then the third entity is the career coaching, because it's another thing that we tend to see specifically in our culture, that, like you mentioned, and that's the same thing that I went through, that when we grow up, I mean, the minute I think we hit like in middle school, elementary school, like it's based on how parents perceive how smart you are. That's the direction that you're going. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you're either in Sudan specifically, once you get to high school, for example, you have to make that decision between ilmi or adabi. Like this is literally that's the options that you have. Either you become you become a doctor, you become an engineer, become a muhandis, you become a lawyer. I mean, so certain things are being guided. So I do have a lot of my clients right now that they took that specific route, but they're not happy. There are doctors, but they're not happy. There are lawyers, but they're not happy, because that was not the path that they want to do. It's the path that's been chosen for them.
Yeah.
So the career coaching specifically identify and help individual figure out what that is, and making transitions the same way that I did. If they decided to quit their job, or if they decided to go forward in a certain direction, we'll help them gear that. We're very direct as far as, income, money, investment. So we do a lot of work in that entity. And then on these three different, categories, we also have parent mentoring, which is specifically for our parents to teach parents how to parent. We do have, youth mentoring, which is specifically for our kids, like, let's say, clients between the age of 13 and 18 and 19, to help give them that specific guidance. We do workshops on a weekly basis, which is specifically that's open to the public, everyone who's invited to come in to join us. We do have a program called the I Will Father program, which is specifically for young parents and young fathers in specific, because we culturally we understand the gaps of our parent, like father figure in our lives, and even if they're there, but they're not there because they're doing certain things and their thought process as far as how to contribute. So we work on that specific. And then we do have an entrepreneurship club, which is specifically for young entrepreneurs that wanted to come in, start businesses, learn how to invest, learn how to manage budget, start businesses, and doing things in that nature. So we do offer a variety of different services that I think cover a lot of the real life of just maybe a young individual Sudanese or not Sudanese, just culturally. And it's very culture sensitive because we understand that each person is a different culture. So I sound like for you, for example, for you specifically, you're not the same as your brother or sister. You're not the same as your cousin. Even if you guys grew up in the same household, each person have different things to bring into the table. True. So when we take it, that's how we treat it, that each person is different. So we're trying to identify, cater to that specific differences and embrace these differences.
Wow, there are a lot of services you guys working on, but now I have another question to add to this. Are you planning to expand more services? There's areas that you guys want to cover in I Will Coaching, or are you gonna stop at this?
So for us, like that's one thing that once people start to, like, for example, reach out to us, and when I use the word us, it's not. I mean, I am the founder. I do take certain specific clients, but I do have a team that works under us that do cover all these particular services. We're very diverse, and we're very creative as far as needs. I mean, like just last year when we had the whole situation, for example, of the sexual abuse, things that happen within our community, we created a specific program to help identify victims and help support them, survivors in that sense. So we're not afraid to pull the trigger if we realize there's a specific gap. When the whole Sudanese revolution, created, we went in, we created a lot of different free programs specifically to raise awareness, to help with the whole, social aspect of things, help people understand who they are, self-confidence, self-esteem, helping people to learn who they are as individuals and that connection that they have between first generation, second generation back home versus here. So we're not afraid to pull the trigger as far as if there is a certain need within our communities and the things that need, we're very quick to jump in, adjust. And I think the way we structured the actual company is to take a lead. We also work with Africa Week. It's an entity, the Adolfo partnership, to provide some mentorship for individuals within the African continent. So like I said, we're trying to reach different things, to go beyond Sudan, to go beyond young, and to go into, vision long term. To be honest with you, we want to actually be able to serve the entire African continent, because I think we have a lot to offer, and I think putting Africa on the map is one of those goals that I do genuinely hold dear to my heart.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I've seen the work you guys have been doing in the past months, and I got to connect with you actually in Ramadan through SDN World. So I think that's also one of the ways that you guys adapt to whatever is happening, and your main goal is always to help, to contribute, to put your name out there in the most positive way. So like, if we're going to go back to the SDN and the programs and the daily talks that you used to give, it left a huge impact on so many Sudanese who were on that platform during Ramadan, during COVID. So do you recall COVID, and do you recall how COVID affected you guys and the pandemic and the lockdown, and you had to switch everything from the office to working online, mentoring people online? I guess that's been a challenge.
So, a very good question. But one thing that's, alhamdulillah, when we decided to start I Will Coaching roughly 3 years ago, the idea of virtual was always in mind. Because it's like, for us, it's like we never, like, I don't like the word borders. So for us, it's like we wanted to reach people all over the globe, and the only way we can do that by doing, either physically go to every place in the world and do workshops and things like that, or use technology to our advantage. So when we created the company, to be honest with you, it was started like, policies and procedure from the grounds up to be held virtually. So when the whole pandemic kicked in, the exciting part about it is like, 95% of our staff are doing the work virtually anyways. We do have clients here in the state that want to do that face to face. So we just made that adjustment. And funny story, I was actually in Dubai when the whole pandemic happened, and I had like a couple events there, and then all of a sudden, like Sudan shut down its borders, so I ended up hopping on, on a plane and going to Sudan to be with my family, and then the Sudan shut its border. So I actually was in Sudan for about a month and a half during the pandemic, and it was just like, but we were able to run the business from Sudan. We just needed some good internet, and you know how Sudan is with that.
Yeah,
But
that's
somehow
difficult.
it was like a very interesting timing.
Wow.
But it was a blessing. It was definitely a blessing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I assume it's also been difficult. But so you guys had the idea of that working virtually is the thing before people were forced to do that. So it's always
100%.
like trying to plan for the long run, not just like plan, emergency contingency plans whenever something hits. That's part of the coaching. I think it's not just running the business.
100% adaptability, brother. Like, and I think that was one of the reasons why it was very exciting for me to move out of the office settings, the mental health aspect of things. Because one of the plans I wanted to take that company is to go virtual. But then, of course, we have policies and procedures and regulations by the health departments and all these different mental health, aspect of things. We could not do that, so we're like, okay, well, if we can't do it, maybe just create something that we can have control and do that. And then, like, as you mentioned, now they're forced to go through and do that.
Yeah.
But the exciting part is like now, post-pandemic, what happens then? Are people going to go back, or are people going to continue this whole module of virtual? And I think that's a very good question to ask.
It is a very good question. Nobody knows, actually. People are just like
Right.
living day by day, which is another problem, as if we're not really learning from the pandemic and the lockdown. It's like you have to plan ahead and take the risk. Doesn't matter where it ends, you have to take the risk, because like if you just leave yourself to the world like this, whatever flows your boat, you might end up in the wrong sea.
100%. And I tell people, and this is something that we talk about all the time. And I think we did a workshop specifically for that. What the lockdown did, it created time. I get it, the stress behind it, the mental health behind it, the aspect of depression, the anxiety, and everything else behind it. But what it gave a lot of people time at home to think. Even if you say, well, I'm working that 9 to 5. Great, but guess what? You're not driving to work. So you have an additional hour or 2 hours, whatever that is, every single day for 7 days. That's 7 hours a week that you can do something for you. So, and we live in a day and age where starting a business or going something or doing something different, it's never been as easy as before. Like when we started working in this field 16 years ago, we had faxes. We used to fax documents. Now I'm able to access my clients' things in Dubai, where I'm sitting down on a computer. I'm able to see his whole or her whole entire file right in front of me. So technology, happened. People are evolving, and you mentioned it. If we sit back and just wait for things to happen, things will never happen. But versus taking a leap, taking that time and utilizing the time effectively. And it's all about the time management. It's all about time management. We all get 24 hours a day. It's just what you choose to do with your 24 hours. Are you sleeping 18 hours or are you sleeping 4? Are you watching TV for 16 hours or are you watching TV for 1? Are you working 8 hours or are you working 60 hours a day? It's up to you. You choose. And again, so that goes back into that time, and this message is for every listener right now who's have the thoughts about starting a business or have the thoughts about changing what they like, have the thoughts about doing something for their own. What's stopping you? Really, what's stopping
No
you?
excuses.
There's no excuses whatsoever.
Yeah.
You have Google, you have Google, you have Siri that you can literally ask any question, from how to open up a business, how to file, how to do whatever that is. Brother, I was able to change my own tires. I'm not a mechanic. I just asked YouTube how to change a tire for a car, and it did. How to build the website. it showed me how to do it. So
You can
there's
always do
no
it.
excuses. I
No,
mean,
at
it's out there
all.
for every person
There's
out
no
there.
excuse. Actually, this podcast we're recording now, this is I think it's gonna be the 28th episode. I don't even record
Ah,
the
inshallah.
number.
Nice.
Is a result of the lockdown where I was just sitting down. I had to start. When I started, I even these headphones were not there. I didn't have the mic for those who are watching, and I was not in this house.
Right.
So I recorded in a house with a very bad internet connection. I had to record literally in the closet because it's near the door where there's internet connection. I stay inside the closet with a blanket, so isolate myself. And I started like that. I said, there's nothing to stop me, because I was always complaining. I have no time. I was always working. I need to commute, the train and stuff, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, now if I'm not going to start now, I will never start. And
That's
I'm in
it.
Spain, where like we were really locked down for real from March.
That's it.
So, and
That's
here
it.
we are, like I'm talking with you almost on the 30th episode of the Hassan Talks
Wow.
podcast.
Wow. Congratulations, bro, man. Definitely take my hat off for you, because I remember when we talked, I think the first time roughly about 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago, it was really just, you just got started. I think it was like episode 4 or 5 or 6, and you're getting very excited about it. SubhanAllah, look at that. And like a year later, you are hitting, episode 30. But that's the byproduct of the efforts, that the work that you put in, the mindset that you said, you know what, I just can stay at home and do nothing. I can sit here and just watch TV all day long, or I can do something that is beneficial for me and beneficial for other people. So kudos, bro. Take my hat off for you, man. It's
Absolutely,
great.
absolutely. But I gotta say to you, like the talks you used to give for during the SDN program actually was part of the motivation as well. I used to watch it, and I used to like say, man, what this guy is saying is absolutely brilliant. I gotta do something myself. I gotta do something myself.
Awesome.
So it's all connected. And you see like how amazing that somebody that's based somewhere like completely away from you can motivate you through a phone or through a laptop. And you've been saying that people like sometimes waste their time sleeping, or just like overthinking or blaming others, while others are actually wasting their time just like on social media, or just looking at what this person has posted, what that person has done, and gossip and stuff. So like we're getting more tools, more technology, more time with the pandemic, and still no outcome out of this. So I genuinely don't know what would make some people change their behavior to use this technology, which is social media at this moment, for their own benefit instead of wasting it.
100%. I think you bring up a very good, good question, bro. Like a lot of times, a lot of people are not happy where they're at in life, but they're comfortable because they're afraid. I mean, they have that fear of change, fear of like, what if I fail, fear of just being comfortable, and the whole idea of uncertainty that brings a lot of anxiety. So what people tend to do is to stay in the same position because they're familiar with it, and they're not willing to take that chance. So what happens sometimes is, you have outside forces that will force you to change. The pandemic. I mean, some people will say, I remember I had a session this morning with one of my clients who's for years, I had the same kid like for about, I think this is my 3rd year with him. And he will say, absolutely, I will never do virtual. It needs to be face-to-face. I cannot do these virtual concept things. Now, 99% of his business is being run virtually. So, and then we had the conversation about he had to adapt. And the thing is, like, if you would have listened roughly about 3 years ago and started to make these proper adjustment, you would not be, trying to play catch up at this point. But it's okay. I mean, everything happened for a reason. So I think for my advice for every person, out there, you have the ability to change your outcome if you want. If you feel like you're tired of where you are in life and you're just feeling stuck and you feel like you're not able to move and you're not able to go forward, if it's related to mental health, for example, the depression, the anxiety, and they are real, reach out. I mean, a lot of therapists are offering free consultations. A lot of life coaches are offering free consultations. Take the chance, make that phone call. There's no commitment. Like, just make the phone call, have the conversations. Because the way I look at it, it's like it's an investment on your own self. I mean, typically, and again, I want to be honest, culturally, it's a lot easier for us to give advice to others. It's a lot easier for us to do for others, but we tend to neglect ourselves in the process. Yeah. So now, if you realize that you are
actually.
100%. I mean, if I tell you, bro, like I talked to my parents, like been in the Khalid, lived in the Khalid for like 30 plus years, then lived here for 20 years, something. My mom's mindset, and I love my mom, and she will listen to this podcast with me,
Yeah.
once it's inshallah, once it's published. But one thing that's still about, like, she works because she wants to make money so she can send back to Sudan. Like, literally, and we always have these conversations about Hajj, why don't you just buy this new things that you like? No, like, well, you know what? Like, my brothers and sisters will benefit from it more, from that
Yeah.
particular. So the mindset, it's programmed for years, and you can't change that. I mean, I can't have a conversation with my parents and they're like, you're wrong. I mean, at this point, they will never accept it,
Yeah.
and that's the way they are. But and I'm not telling people to be selfish, but what I'm telling people is, if you take care of yourself and you are okay, you are able to take care of others.
Yeah.
But if you're not able to take care of yourself, how are you expecting to take care of others? That's when you get burned down. That's how you get depressed, that you get anxious, that you get stressed. And that's what I mean. Like, we have to change the way we think of things to put ourselves as a priority. So if you are a listener and you hate your job, you hate your situation, you hate the relationship that you're in, you're feeling stressed, you feel not motivated every morning to do it, you have the ability to change. All you have to do is take the first step, make the first call, reach out to someone and ask the proper question. And I promise you will get some answers.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's not easy to admit that. I think that's also the problem. Number one, like to say what I'm doing is wrong, or the approach I'm taking into this life is needs to be adjusted. But I don't know. I don't know if, like, sometimes it's the society, as you said, like the Sudanese mindset or the Mughtaribin mindset. Like, you're outside,
Right,
you are the Santa Claus of Sudan. You have to send all the time,
right,
and you ignore
right.
yourself. And you see these people living, yeah, of course, outside for generations, and you see them with the same car that they started with in the 90s or the 80s, because of this idea, like, I'm responsible to send money back, which is good always to be helpful for others and take care of others, not to be that selfish. But yeah, if you don't take care of yourself, which we have a responsibility towards, like God
Right.
asked us to take care of ourselves, then take care of the ones around us as well. So that's not a balanced approach to life at all. And then we get disappointed when somebody does not help us, because we are doing so much for others, like above the
It's
limit.
true.
So we get like, really, he's not helping me? Well, you don't have to help yourself first before you get disappointed like that.
100%, bro. 100%. And I love my people in Sudan. I go to Sudan right now, thinking to be more often. Alhamdulillah, we run a lot of projects in Sudan to make sure that
Mashallah.
we're providing, helping, and supporting in there. I mean, so this is something I do understand. Al Mu'ana, I do understand what it is. But one of the things that also, I mean, it's silah dhu haddain. Also, another issue that we tend
Yeah.
to see, the codependency. With not everybody in there, but there's a lot of people are definitely taking advantage where they're not working because their Muqtaybin family members are sending money. I'm not trying to generalize,
Yeah.
but we tend to see this
It
a lot.
happens. It
That
happens. Yeah.
people, okay, I mean, it definitely happens, and just the mindset, and as someone, you are outside and you are working, the expectation, you're supposed to go out there and do this. That becomes an expectation. If you don't do it, now you are at fault. You're wrong. You this and that. And for me, to be honest with you, these are some of the top topics that I had when I came to Sudan. I had, like, I think we held about 5 different workshops. We hit roughly about 700 people during that 5-day stay in Sudan, like the different workshops that we did. And these are the topics that we opened up. Very uncomfortable topics to talk about, but it was much needed because we needed people to understand that, like, life is not just, butterflies and rainbows. I mean, these guys here are struggling, but how are we able to come to a medium where we're able to communicate? And how are you guys not taking some response? And again, I don't want to generalize, but there are certain things that we tend to see, but it goes back into, if your cup is not full, how are you able to share some? So it goes back into making sure that you are taking care of yourself first, then be able to go out there to have that mental capacity to help and approach and take care of everybody else.
Yeah. I hope so. Like, I hope this kind of ideas are changing into this generation, the younger generation, the understanding how you can help and support your people, and in the best way possible, while not losing yourself as well. So you balance it, because if there is somebody who cannot do anything without you, you have to take care of yourself first, so you'll be able to help that person. And if you take it like that, then you will be able to help anybody else. But, like, what I want to ask you, since you did some workshops in Sudan, is the difference of the topics, or the way you tackle the topics in Sudan and the way you do it in the US. I assume that would be very, very interesting, right? Like, because you're tackling maybe sometimes maybe some stuff similar, like, parenthood, how you deal with the kids and how they decide which college they go to or which career they choose and stuff like this. But it's completely different. Like the US and Sudan, completely different words.
100%. I think being very sensitive to the culture, and I think being proud of who you are. I mean, this is something that for me, culture makes everything for me. I'm very proud to be Sudanese. I walk around talking it. I don't walk. I mean, I walk around with my specific accent. This is who I
That's the
am as a
flag right
person.
there.
I see the flag right behind you, bro. And this is something that I'm trying to engrave into my kids. I mean, to be proud of who they are. To be proud of, like, so when right now when people ask you to introduce yourself, you will never catch me saying I'm an American, I'm African American. No, I'm not. I'm Sudanese. That's the first thing that comes out of my mouth with everybody that I talk to. So I think understanding the culture and not losing that connection, because as you mentioned, there's a huge disconnect between what's happening the day to day in Sudan versus what's happening here, for example, in the US. And it's very easy to lose yourself in the process. The way I do it is by asking a lot of questions. So before we even went to Sudan to set those certain topics, we sent tons of surveys because I wanted to understand. I mean, I haven't been back in 20 years or so. I mean, yes, I have friends, I do have family, I speak with them on constant. I mean, I practice my language on a daily basis just to make sure that I don't lose that. But at some point, what's happening in Sudan, when we went back like to do these workshops, it was, we sent tons of surveys. We asked a lot of different people. We asked, and the people that we asked is not just the people on social media. Literally, we had people out there going out on the streets asking people. I drove when I landed in Sudan for the first time, I drove from Khartoum. I rented a car and I drove to Kamlin, the Jazeera, which is roughly about an hour and some change. And we stopped at probably about 4 different villages. Literally just pull over, go to the store, have some, like some food, and just the kids are walking around playing soccer. We stop by and just start asking questions about what's going on, what do you see, what's happening, and just the genuine excitement. That it's subhanAllah, it was an eye-opening experience for me. It was just like one of those things that you sit down and eat and you learn about the culture. One of the most memorable ones was I ran into kids, like a bunch of group that 13-year-olds were playing soccer. So we played with them for a little bit. And then after we sat down, we started just talking about just health and wellness overall. And this kid said, wow, yeah. We play soccer every day. And then after we finish the tamreen, we go in to buy basta. Basta for, so I was like, okay. He was like, yeah, me and my boy right here. The kid is like 13, he's very skinny, like skinny boy, like just look, and he was like, oh, we eat like 2 kilo basta every single day. And I'm like, okay, so let me ask you a question. You eat 2 pounds of pasta every day? He's like, yes. I'm like, does your dad have diabetes? He's like, yeah. Does your dad have any other problem? Oh yeah, high blood pressure, he has diabetes, he has some kidney issues. How about your mom? Oh, my mom has this. Like he listed like 20 different things. And I'm like, so I was like, what do you think is gonna happen to you? He's like, what do you mean? Oh, the dini liyaqa. I'm like, no. Don't give me diabetes. Wow. That's what it's going to do. So we start to have the conversation about health and wellness and what it is. And that's too much sugar. And how are you burning so much sugar? Maybe add some more things. And subhanAllah, they were very accepting. Like, again, it didn't come out like we being like, oh, this is the way we do it. No, it's just more of understanding the certain topics. So when we did that, I think it was a very humbling experience just to dig deeper into who we are and going in and that. So when we started to do these workshops, some of it was sure planned, but I think 3 or 4 of them were just not planned. We just like at the moment we're sitting down, people just open up a topic, let's just talk about it. So initially when I do my workshop, I do ask a lot of questions just to gauge and trying to understand what that culture is. And then that approach is critical. And subhanAllah, like he said, it's like the taqabbul, how people just, who is this person coming from the US to point fingers to tell me that my way of living is not the right way? So we have to be very careful as far as some of the questions that we ask, as far as how we approach these individuals. But one thing that I came to a conclusion, brother, people know. You know that you're not right. You know if you're not doing it right. You know if there's something missing. But ego and inad and all these different things trying to push you away from accepting and admitting. But the biggest message that we're trying to tell people, you don't need to admit things to anybody. You just need to make sure that you admit that to yourself and make the proper adjustment. Because it's not about people. It's about you, happiness and wellness. I mean, if you're okay, you're okay. behind closed doors. But if you're not okay behind closed doors, do something about it. And people don't need to worry about how you're doing it. So I'm very big on al-kitman, like do your things, ask your questions, understand your things, do your things,
Yeah.
do your things. And then once you're ready to let people know, let people know. But before that, people should not have, like a say in every aspect of everything you do in your life. And this is a cultural thing that I think we need to work
Yeah,
on and change.
yeah. That is a cultural thing. That's a very Sudanese thing. Like, I'll take any example, like somebody who wants to study a major, and then the whole family. When I say the family in the Sudanese perspective, it's like the uncles and the aunts and the grandpa and the grandma, and they all sit down and they all like, no, he should be a civil engineer. No, he should not, because we have enough 3 4 7 engineers. Let's get somebody else to fix, I don't know, this and that. And they're choosing their career for you, and you actually say, well, I'm not really complaining about it. And I've seen like weird situations. To be honest, I've seen this guy who studied industrial engineering, if I'm not mistaken. When I told him, man, that's actually nice. That's a nice degree. So how did you choose it? Because it's not that common, I think, in that place. He said, well, actually, I did not choose it. Like my grandpa, because he's sheikh, so he chose it for me. I said, okay, what do you mean? And he's like, very normal. Like
Right.
he's surprised that I'm surprised. He said, no, like it's me and my cousins. We all went to a sheikh who قعدنا, and we sat down, and he said, you industrial engineer, you doctor, you don't study, you drive a taxi or whatever. And we all just followed him. So man, that's a disaster. That's a disaster.
Wow, wow, yeah, that's beyond a disaster, subhanallah. And this is, but again, and I think this is the things that this is the responsibility. And I know one of the things I wanted to talk about just that the roles and responsibility and the impact that we tend to do and how we influence in others. And this is something that I think we need more awareness. And that's why I think that your responsibility has an online doing these podcasts to raise certain issues and put that awareness. It's my responsibility as a coach to identify these different things and provide some support. It's a responsibility of a doctor to go out there and raise awareness as far as to avoid the WhatsApp like prescription and doctrines
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody have the PhD on that crap. It's a responsibility of a Muhammad to go out there and teach and train on certain topics that he or she is an expert on. But this is not just a responsibility of one person or a second. It's a responsibility of all of us. I think to come together as a community, so each person is able to raise that awareness and challenge those thoughts. If that's a thought that someone come in and said the Sheikh said that, like, first of all, how did the Sheikh know? All due respect to the shiur. I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm saying, like, but again, there's something all due
Yeah,
respect to
yeah, yeah.
them. But at some point, it's like, how would that make you feel? Are you okay? Are you fulfilled? Are you satisfied? Or you're not? Because you're the one who's going through the process. I mean, if I tell you about like the stories that with some of the clients that I have currently, guys are finishing. I mean, I have a guy who's 53 years old, been an attorney for the past 30, solid, like probably like 25 years, solid 25 years, not happy with his life. So we dig deeper into figuring out what that is. And all of a sudden we come up with, I know he wants to be a real estate agent, and he makes that shift. Just imagine this. The other guy who's some type of engineer, now he wants to become a surfer. Like, so he can just go out there and surf. Sold his house, moved into what is it called? Here we have West North Carolina. They have some beaches. He moved in there. He bought a small house, and he's living there surfing every single day. And again, these are individuals but you think about the waste that you went through for 40 years, 30 years, 25 years, and just that, and being miserable going through all these different things. Right now, you have that ability to take a step back and say, that's not what I want. I want to stand up for myself. But again, I understand culture. I respect our culture. But at some point, I understand that there's gaps within our culture that needs to be challenged and needs to be processed. And I think it's our responsibility as Sudanese, as influencers, as individuals with platforms to start to challenge those thoughts respectfully and start to change some of these mindsets little by little. And it's a step. I mean, it's a process. It's not going to happen within a night or two. It's going to take time, but we got to start somewhere.
No, yeah, we got to start somewhere. Of course, like culturally, there's so many things that needs to be at least questioned and put into a better perspective. But luckily, and I say luckily, the revolution, when it took place 2 years ago, it questioned so many things. So it was also, we've been saying this in the podcast before, it's a revolution of the mindset, of behavior, of culture. Before, it was a revolution of the political scene. But with all that being said, it's still a work in progress that needs to be continued. There's a lot of things that needs to be done by so many people. And yeah, instead of, as we said in the beginning of the episode, blaming others for stuff, or blaming the culture in general, or blaming the parents or the generations and stuff, anybody can do a little change in their whatever they're available to them. Maybe somebody like listen to this have very tough situations, like you guys don't understand what I'm going through. I'm having very miserable time. I have to sacrifice so much to provide. But with that being said, there is something at least you can do to change. So I'm sure you, as a coach, you've been through like these calls or like these sessions with people who have it absolutely like everything is trashed around them, yet they have to change. How do you motivate those people to actually make the change?
Hey, look, perfect. And you're absolutely right. And not just, it's one of those things that we tend to see probably on a daily basis. Some of the stories, I mean, one of the luxury that we have is, some of the clients that we have being from all over the world is we tend to get clients that are in places that like just the darkest of the darkest. Like it's like, providing and doing things. I think when we bring in hope into the equation, things change. A lot of times when people feel like there's no way, like there's desperate, they're in the bottom, they're just in a really bad situation. The reason being is because they're not seeing hope. They don't have any hope. They lost that hope. So one thing that we tend to do as far as how to motivate is by first of all, understanding where they're at, completely understand where they're at. And a lot of times when I tell people there is 1,000 ways to skin a cat. I just want to be 100% honest. Like, so it's never just my way or the highway. I mean, if you tell me like, this is the way I'm doing it and I tried everything away, every single thing I tried it, I probably would have called you and say, you know what, you're lying. And they were like, well, what do you mean that I'm lying? Like, okay, bring the situation, let's process it. And so subhanAllah, when we start to process certain things, and trying to empower them into finding different ways, and I'm looking at the situation from the outside in. So it's a lot easier for me to pinpoint certain areas because they are in it. They're in that circle. Like, they're stuck. Like everywhere they go, they feel themselves stuck. But I'm looking at it from the outside in and saying, well, how about that way? And they're like, oh, well, what if let's process that. And then typically when we go through these conversations, you start to give one or two or three different other possibility that they have not thought of, which is this is exactly what we want to be. And that's where that hope comes in. And then they tend to say, oh, okay, I'm not doing the work for them. They're doing the work. And again, with that little hope, it comes with a little motivation. With that little motivation, they start to make some movement, just small adjustments. Boom, first step. And it's like, okay, second step, third step, and it's just taking them out of their norm where they've been stuck for years. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, all right. And then start to see that momentum. Because now what they did is they created a new path into things. Just a simple thing. When I was in Sudan, went into the Saf al-Aish. It's one of those things that was just very interesting, just it's a problem there. And so I went in, alhamdulillah, I got the luxury to go into one of the stores and they had aish, basically 5 aish, had like the flat aish, like the ones that we typically eat here, like the pita bread, right? So they would sell 5 breads for like 30 taqriban or something like that. And then I went in to the makhbaz and I waited online for like 3, 4, 5 hours, and I'm just asking people. It was for me, just trying to understand some of the concepts. So one of the guys was just there complaining, oh my God, I can't believe this. This is crazy. We come to this stuff. So I asked him, I'm like, well, how long you been, what do you do? He's like, I drive a rickshaw. I'm like, okay, mashallah, this is great. I'm like, well, how long you been waiting for, he was like, I've been here for about 5 hours. I was like, wow. 5 hours. He's like, 5 hours been waiting. So I was like, well, typically how much do you make like, like per hour, like when you drive in your rickshaw, He's like, well, roughly, I make roughly about, like, نص مليون in an hour. So, okay, this is great. So I was like, this is great. You're busy, alhamdulillah. Which is good. Yeah. He's like, oh, yeah. I was like, great. So I was like, you just waited for 4 hours. So roughly, technicality, you just lost million in. He's like, yeah. Oh, screw this country, screw this. I'm like, how about this? Did you know that store right there will sell you these pita bread, 5 of them for 30? And then he was like, well, but ما بنحبه ده. I was like, okay, so is it a preference? Or is it like, I was like, listen, watch you start to get used to liking it. Because now you just wasted million in You could have worked those million in, went to that store, picked up like 3 of those like pita bread for million, and that's to give you a 15 Aisha, and you will still be okay to work more. And I'm just talking about just, so he literally sat down and he was like, oh, I never thought about that.
That's crazy that he never thought about it like this. But
he said,
you spoke it in his language, and then he got it,
right,
which is numbers.
And literally, he was like, Wallah, he looked so cool. He was like, I never thought about that. I'm like, well, how about this? Why don't you think about that and let me know? So right away, he said, you know what? That's interesting. I was like, all right, you know what? I was like, let's go ahead and get some food, and I'm going to use that specific bread. We went, we had some breakfast, but then he went and bought it, and he actually next night he took off. But like, that's what I mean about that. But if that person, you just would have asked him before this conversation that I had with him, he knew what's going on, he'll probably be like, you know what? I'm stuck. I can't make money. I can't make meat. I'm stuck in this, line for 4, 5, 6 hours every single day. That's all wasted. I'm sitting down. It's a lot easier. Again, I'm not saying, I'm not generalizing. It's just one individual, Right, it's an example. Like not every lecture driver will drive, make $1 million every 2 hours. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying like that just one simple example where he felt that he's stuck in a situation, but by you just bringing a different perspective, speaking his language and simplifying it for him, where it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. So now you, instead of wasting, now you go in, pick up that bread, but it's got to take me 2 seconds. Now I have 8 hours of just grinding and making money. And if we don't like that type of bread, we just got to get used to it. Even if I have to pay a little bit more, but I'm saving time where I can make more money. So just that simple, and as far as like simplifying certain things and giving a different perspective. But as we mentioned earlier, every story is different. Every person is different. So if I share with you how I'm struggling or how I'm stuck, you can look at it and say, well, Abdelwahab, maybe do it this way. And you're like, oh, so that's why that power of proximity, surrounding yourself with individuals that are positive, individuals that can think outside the box, and individual can motivate and help you. And then whatever feedback they're giving you, you don't feel like they're being judging you, they're being judgmental. It's more of like, it's coming from the heart. Let me make that adjustment.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think, you've answered the question quite in the best way possible, which is like how to help somebody who's stuck in a very bad situation and cannot be taken out of it. And you started by saying it starts with hope, then step 1, and then step 2, and then creating that path. And then from that place, you go further and further. And I love that. I love that approach, because like sometimes realistically things don't seem gonna work out at all. But hope is when there is hope, then anything can happen. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, maybe the next month, maybe the next year, who knows? But it exists. And I love that approach from you as a coach, to put hope and try to make your clients think about it in that way. And then, of course, from your perspective as well, you said as well, like some people have to surround themselves with individuals who are creative enough or helpful enough so they can see things from a better perspective. But if you don't have those people, again, no excuse. You can reach out to a coach or a therapist, whatever, somebody a professional can help you to get out of that place and go somewhere else. So as long as we are, I think we are hitting the 1 hour mark, which is it's quite long, but I believe this episode is very, very rich and full of value. So I want you to conclude by giving very quick tips from you as a coach, from your experience, for those who want to stay committed to whatever project or plan or dream or goal they want to achieve, just like in bullet points, what they can do.
Beautiful. I think the first step is to identify what do you want. Like, what are you going after? Like, be specific. Like, I know, again, we have all these different ideas. So simple, I want to lose weight. How much weight do you want to lose? I want to lose 10 pounds, 10 kilos. Beautiful. That's a goal. So set that big goal that you want to do, then break that goal into something that's smaller, achievable goal. That's something that you're able to do. So you want to say, I want to lose 10 kg. Beautiful. How long do you want to lose this 10 kg? Oh, I want to lose this 10 kg within a year. Perfect. So you have 52 weeks. You want to lose 10 kg within 1 year. So if you break down that 10 kg by that 52 weeks, all you need to do is lose 0.5 kg, for example, a week. With that, you can lose. So that's, see what I'm saying? So if I'm able to lose half a kg a week, that's very achievable versus me losing 10 kgs. So set a big goal, break the big goals into something that's more smaller goals that's achievable, and I just start. Take that first step, go to the next one, go start to build that momentum. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people that tend to like why they lose, tend to focus and things like that, because if they don't know why they want to achieve certain goals. So this is something that if they reach out to me and say, for example, that I want to do this, my first question becomes why? Why do you want to lose 10 kg? Why do you want to make $100,000? Why do you want to buy your own house? Why do you want to get married? And I think the more you dig deeper into why is it important for you to do that, once you get to that level, that's the goal. Break the goal into something that's a little bit more smaller, that's achievable. And then from there, set that schedule, that time management. Identify a time in your day where you are becoming consistent every single day to do whatever that is that you need to. Let me just give you an example. You say, Abdelwahab, I want to do podcasts. Beautiful. How many episodes? You know what? My goal, Abdelwahab, to do 100 episodes. Like, what's your timeline in 1 year? Beautiful. So 100 episodes, 1 year, that means technically you need to do about 2 episodes a week. 52 weeks, roughly about 100, Yes, perfect. So how do I do that? Let's break that down into, I need to get my equipment, check. I need to allocate that time every day, every week on Wednesdays at 3:00. Write that down in your planner. This is the time you're doing this and you're committed. So if I call you and say, Hassan, let's just hang out, I can't. I'm doing my podcast. Putting you first, that self-love, that self-commitment to yourself to achieve that goal. Yeah. So once you have that, you allocate it on your time, and that's how you stay committed, and that's how you stay focused on continue to do that. And your focus is not the big goal, it's the small baby goals that you have to achieve on daily basis or weekly basis.
So it start by asking why and being specific, and then committing to those small baby steps or small goals until you reach the end of it. That's a brilliant.
It's that simple. And I'm not saying that to you because that's what I read. That's what I do. This is how I do my own goals. So I do have my 10-year goals, 5-year goals, 1-year goals, 9-month goals, 6-month goals, 3-month goals, 1-month goals, weekly goals, and then daily goals. And it's all just working together. And if you fail, it's okay. You readjust. If you don't wake up one day, you're not feeling okay, that's fine. You have the next day to try. If you do, and that's what some people might say, well, I don't know where to go. Simple. Start with the things that you're good at and what you want. And that's how you start. If you say, well, I don't want to work for someone else, that's the goal. I want to lose some weight. That's the goal. I want to be in a committed relationship. That's a goal. I want to invest in Bitcoin. That's a goal. Whatever that is, that why you want to do it, that should be goal. Break it down to something simple, and then you start to work on these simple baby goals every day.
And inshallah, you will get into the goal that you want, or maybe you discover that goal actually is not for you. You need something else.
That's it.
Which is also that's natural. We are humans. At the end of the day, we learn day by day. We make mistakes. That's also super normal. So, I don't know how to conclude this episode because it's been like super full of information, super full of stories and helpful stories for sure. I'm really glad that Abdelwahab, you accepted my invitation to be part of the podcast. Glad that you've seen the progress in the podcast when we talked before and we talk now as well. And for sure, I will leave all the links that if you want to reach out to Abdelwahab or see I Will Coaching, they have an amazing platform. They have so much to offer. And I'm sure anybody who's looking for something, they will find it in their platform. Coaching-wise, relationships, advices, mentoring. They're doing so amazing work. And I'm glad that Abdelwahab, you are part of this podcast. I'll give you this free time to conclude you as well.
Habibi, man, thank you so much, man, for the invite. I truly appreciate it. And just to put it out there, I, personally check every single email. I personally check every single message that we tend to get on our social media, either, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or just emails in general. I personally check it and view it. And I do take full responsibility as far as responding. So if you do reach out to us, you have a question, we have, a comment, we need some advice, or just reach out. And it's going to be me personally reaching out, not my assistant, not my staff. It's me, because I value your time. If you took that time, that energy to put something and you asked that specific question, and you took out of your time to reach out, this is my promise to you that I will personally reach out to you, just to make sure that we at least, if it's not something we're able to help you with, we will direct you to someone that can help. So all, just what we talked about, just reach out. A platform is open for you. Just reach out, free consultation, whatever that is. There's no obligation. You don't even have to. Do have people that will just reach out to get a free consultation. We'll never ever pressure anybody to sign to anything, because we believe it's like it needs that commitment. Once you're ready, you're ready. We had a person that reached out to us 3 years ago with a simple question. We answered that simple question, and that's it. We haven't heard from them. They follow us on Instagram for the past 3 years. Now all of a sudden they just signed up. Was it last month? They signed up for a year, paid in advance for a whole year coaching. I was like, hold on a second, this is beyond. And in their mind, it's like they weren't ready at that time, but now they are, and they know what they want. So that's perfect. No pressure whatsoever. All we say, just ask, reach out, and inshallah we'll be able to deliver.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. So that's been Abdelwahab, one of the amazing Sudanese creators that been doing amazing work out there. He's based in the US, but his heart has always been in Sudan, and the work he's been doing is helpful for all the communities, the African community, the Sudanese community, or the Muslim community as well. And this has been me, Hassan Fadl, on Hassan Talks podcast. The series continues, the podcast continue. So stay tuned for the coming episodes, and peace out.